Hello fellow gamers, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm here to talk about gear, specifically gear weights and the optimal light, medium, and heavy gear, and also the preferred gems that you could use during PvP and PvE combat. So let's start out with talking about all the types of gear that we have here and all the different weights that are associated with them. So here we have three different classes of the gear. We have light gear, medium gear, and heavy gear, as you can see in these columns, their associated weights. These become important because we want to try to maximize the amount of weight we could have while staying in those categories. So for lightweight, that is from 0 to 13 weight, and then medium is going to be from 13 to 23. So the reason you'd want to stay in those classes is because when you're in lightweight gear, you get a 20% advantage in damage and in healing. And also with medium gear, you get a 10% boost in damage or healing. So as you can see here, all the light armor ranges from 1.5 to 3.5 apiece. All the medium gear ranges from 2.6 to 6.2 per gear. And the heavy is from 4.7 to 11. So as we know, if you want to stay in that optimal light gear range, you're probably not going to be wearing any heavy armor now. Whereas in prior betas, like in the closed beta in August, you could mix and match some heavy gear and medium gear and still stay in that light gear category. So we can see a huge reduction here in the optimal gear setup. I have created a diagram to show you the optimal light gear strategy that you could be using while you're out there PvPing or PvEing in a tournament. Here you can see we have a light headpiece, a medium chest piece, light legs, light boots, and light hands. This is the most optimal light gear setup that you could be using. Obviously, you can switch out these pieces with any pieces of the same category. So any light gear is going to switch out for any light gear. From what we've seen in the betas, it seems that they're all pretty standard. If you add all these up, the most optimal weight that you can get to, if we're just looking at weights and not stats, is going to be 12.7. Keep in mind these examples were made for PvP gear specifically. On the higher up levels, when you get to around 60, we might find some other better gear that has better stats in it that will be better to wear and stay in this optimal strategy. Next up, we have the optimal medium gear. Here, it's actually changed a little bit. So we got to stay under 23. And we get all the way up to 22.9, so we're perfect when it comes to the early levels in the PvP gear. We have a heavy helmet, a heavy body, light legs, medium boots, and medium gloves. So if you were to equip all of these, you would be just under that 23 mark and get that 10% boost in damage or healing. Next up, since you guys know what you got to do with the gear in the beginning, we're going to talk about preferred gems that you guys can be using in Eternum. So here we have the optimal PvP weapon gems. The optimal PvP weapon gems that I have identified are the Emerald, the Opal, the Malachite, and the Jasper. So my favorite one that I use is actually the Emerald, getting a 20% boost against target with less than 30% health. This is going to help for killing people out in PvP, making sure that you can actually finish them off and not have them drink a health pot or run off. The other ones that I've mentioned here are very niche. They're probably not the best. I think Emerald's honestly going to be the best when it comes to weapon gems specifically for PvP. I do see some arguments for the Malachite as a 12% boost against targets with an active crowd control on them, which could be really, really good if you're in teams and not by yourself. That could be somebody using Ice Gauntlet to slow down an enemy in their ice spells, or any other people rooting them in their abilities as well. Opal is also a good one for PvP situations, as you're going to mostly be dodging around as you're trying to dodge enemy abilities. That could become useful as you're trying to evade and dodge enemies' spells or sword hits or whatever, and you will always have that 15% damage. Jasper is the last one I put on there for a 15% damage after receiving 3 hits. I put that one as last because although I think it is useful and very niche, I don't think that taking those 3 hits are going to be worth the 15% damage you get in the long run. I can see something if maybe you're in the front line or a tank and you're expecting to get hit, maybe paired up with the shield. That might be a really good rune to consider, but other than that, I wouldn't put it on my weapons. Next up, we have the PvE weapon gems. They're relatively the same, as you can see here for the first two, the Emerald and the Opal, giving you that boost of damage depending on your stamina or health. But we also have some other gems here. The Diamond's going to be preferred for healers that are in the backline, PvE specifically, because in most PvP situations, you're probably going to get hit even as a healer. So your damage and output might not be useful if you have a diamond in one of your weapons. Furthermore, the Moonstone has a big caveat to it. It works kind of similar to the way like Darox works in RuneScape, if you're familiar with that. You get 24% damage when you're below a certain period of health. So it kind of works like, the lower you are, the harder you hit. I can see this being a decent weapon for like someone using a hatchet and maybe they're rushing in and not afraid to lose health because they have their own vulnerability. But other than that, it's a very situational gem for PvE. I would stick with the Emerald or the Opal. If I was a healer or some type of backline, I'd stick with the Diamond. Lastly, we have the Taunt gem. So this is obviously for the tank of the group. If you're doing expeditions or any type of arenas, you're going to obviously want to have that gem there so you can have all the aggro. So next we're going to switch over to PvP gear. So PvP gear is, it's pretty straightforward. You want to try to get as much absorption of elemental damage and physical damage. What I put here is the Malachite. I think is probably the best gem for PvP. As everyone may or may not know, Fire Staff and Ice Gauntlet are going to be the strongest weapons out there in terms of like AoE spells, or if you have a lot of people in PvP. And Malachite can mitigate some of that damage, so can Opal. But that would be if you're just focusing on trying to defend, like as a frontliner in a war or a frontliner on your teams. If you are in the backline, it might be more beneficial to grab like an Onyx or a Diamond. The reason is because most of the time you're going to have people with great axes trying to push through the front line to your backline if you are a backline player, and then meaning that you're going to be getting hit with a bunch of great axes. So you probably want that physical damage absorption over the elemental. These are my 4 preferred ones. I did put some alternatives in the bottom right, as I think in PvP, magic is very strong when it comes to DPS. You may want to consider taking one of these gems to try to mitigate the fire, ice, and void damage when the void glove does come out. These are alternatives though. I don't really suggest them at the moment, but they are something to consider if you find your team taking lots of AoE magic damage, especially in the front line. Finally, we have the PvP gear gems. This is probably the hardest one to find gems for. I put my preferred one as Diamond, Onyx, and Malachite, as I think that most of the PvP monsters that are attacking you are going to be using physical damage instead of elemental damage. So here we have the Diamond just for the physical damage and a little bit of elemental damage. I know there is some elemental damage that does come through, but what I've been seeing in most of the expeditions and in the vast world is going to be physical damage. So I'd recommend taking an Onyx or a Diamond, and a Malachite could be good if you're trying to get some gear that might be if you're going to be using some gear that's going to be used for PvP and PvE. On the right, I put some defense gems in here. I don't think that they're necessarily the greatest gems to use for PvE because they're just so situational. You have some PvE for like nature absorption in the Amber. This would be useful if you're fighting things in like Eden Grove, but other than that, the gem isn't really that useful, so it's very situational. And these gems that you place into your gear are going to be thrown away whenever you switch over to a new zone and have to be replaced. So all of these can be useful, but to be honest with you, I mean, there's something that I would keep on the back burner and focus on those preferred three. So that's it for today's video, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. I also am creating a company in New World, specifically on the Marauder side. I did set up a Discord channel if you guys would like to join and talk to me about anything, joining the guild or being part of the guild. I mean, it would be really cool to get a group of friends together and start making that. There is roles for pretty much every role in the company, as I am just starting it right now. And yeah, feel free to drop by, say hi, say what's up, give me some criticism on my video or comment down below, or just hang out. We will be using the US West server. Haven't decided which one yet, but it's in the works. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you found some value in this video.